Julian. So with the film, there are several films that were made on about Van Gogh, and your film seems to subvert all the assumptions and the cliches of the narrative about him.
Hello. Yeah, I guess so. Um, I guess it's important to know your topic. And I think that people, it's hard to make a movie about painting if you don't know anything about it, or if you're just an admirer of it. And it doesn't necessarily have to be. I think that people can make a movie about anything. And for example, Maurice Piala's movie, which I think people really liked in France, and probably people outside of France, some people like it, but I think they probably like it because it's a non-story. It's a biography without having anything to do with the character. And that's some bizarre philosophical position that could be very attractive. That being said, it had nothing to do with the movie that I made. And when I was little, I liked the movie that Vincent Minnelli made quite a bit. But in watching it as a grown-up, maybe I'm a grown-up, but as watching it as a grown-up, I felt like it was. I definitely didn't want my movie to be like that. I think that it fell into cliches about what an artist is. So I didn't really want to make a movie about Vincent van Gogh. I wanted to make a movie where you were Vincent van Gogh, where you felt like that was happening to you.
In a way, you took further what you were doing with the subjective point of view in the diving bell and the butterfly. You took it to a whole a different level.
It's an extraordinary thing to go to Arles and to be. I mean, one of the protagonists of the movie is absolutely the wind and the sound of the wind. I know there's a lot of music that's playing through it, and there's not a lot of. I mean, there's a decision that you make about having naturalistic sound sometimes, and then absolutely artificial sound. Where the music takes the place of air or becomes air. It's funny, I haven't seen the movie for a while. Jean-Claude Carrier died a year ago. We were very close. Louise, my wife, is here. She wrote the script with Jean-Claude and I, came into it after we started, but she sort of helped us find our way because, I mean, we went to see the Van Gogh and Artaud show at the Musée d'Orsay, and we were able to go in by ourselves, and we were looking at this painting of Vincent's self-portrait, and I was explaining to Jean-Claude how he painted the painting, talking about just the alizarin crimson line that was next to a Prussian blue line that was in the middle of his mouth, and that was basically his face was green. And I think at a certain moment he felt like Vincent was talking to him through me, and he didn't tell me that at that moment, but he did say, well, why don't we just write the script? We don't have to depend on history. We'll just make it up, things that could have happened. And so somebody can't say, oh, that's not historically correct. This is not a forensic biography. It's by any means. But there was an extraordinary quote that Van Gogh had written and Francis Bacon had rewritten that particular quote where he said, how to, um, I don't know if I won't butcher it or I'll try to remember it, but how to make, I don't know if the word was facsimile, but an equivalence where you're telling what you've created is a lie, but the lie is more real than the truth. And so I think that the truth of the movie is maybe as true as I could tell the story, as what I thought was possible. I think that he painted 80 paintings, I think in 75 days. He ordered a bunch of paint the day before he died. I think he wasn't painting when he didn't feel good, and I think when he felt good, he was painting. And so in this book that's been highly refuted by Smith, and I can't remember the other guy's name, Nafed, or I can't, anyway, but they did a lot of documentation that I think people felt, or French people and Dutch people felt, were Americans looking for some sensationalist angle on this. But they didn't find the gun until 80 years later. The fact is that people were actually sitting at that bar where we filmed. Actually, we filmed in Arles, we filmed in Auvers-sur-Oise. We basically, and so when he was walking back from this town that was on the other side of Auvers-sur-Oise, he wasn't anywhere near the wheat field, and people saw him walking back to the Raveau Inn. And there was all this documentation where this guy who basically who shot him was from a wealthy family, and he and his brother were around him a lot. They'd put Tabasco sauce on his brushes because he kind of would put it in his mouth sometime, or put salt in his coffee and messed with him, or brought girls around that would come out to visit them at their summer home outside of Paris. And he wasn't perfect in any sense of the imagination, but it's a movie. And in working with actors, what are we doing when we're doing that? You can have a subject and you can have a story. A story can be true to whatever narrative, but it can be very boring to watch. I think that Willem's performance is probably the best performance he gave in his life. He's kind of done some great things. Marty Scorsese, where he played Christ in Marty's movie, felt that this was his, I felt when he was sitting in the dirt and all of a sudden that smile came across his face. I thought, well, when he dies, they'll probably show that clip, and everybody, the Oscars will have a teary eye or whatever. You were going to say something?
No, go ahead.
I think Louise, my wife's involvement in this film, Juliet Welfling, who was probably the greatest, I'd say the greatest editor in the world, but certainly one of the best. She's done old Jacques Audiard's films, and she did The Diving Bell and the Butterfly with me, and she was supposed to edit this movie. Well, we finished shooting in December, and then she couldn't start until April. First it was going to be March, then it was April. So Louise, who is not an editor, she is a interior designer, learned how to put the, what's it called? The Avid on her computer. So we were editing the film in airplanes in Costa Rica and Mexico. We were making an assembly to start off, but um, we basically edited the movie, and then when Juliet, do we have to stop soon, or I don't want to bore anybody. Anybody could leave. No.
Yeah, and they can raise their hand
Okay.
if they have any.
Anyway, so when she came in, we didn't want to be breathing on her neck or whatever, so she started to work on the movie, and she started to take out everything that characterized it as itself. And so I relieved her of her duties. The producers said, "Well, who's going to edit the movie?" I said, "Louise. We're married now." But I said, "Louise, you mean your girlfriend's going to edit the movie?" "Yeah, my girlfriend's going to edit the movie. I have final cut. It's not a democracy, you know. My girlfriend's going to edit the movie." Anyway, we edited the movie together. I had a little bit of practice, and I think the editing is great in this film. And when Jean-Claude wrote that scene about the shoes, and just the filming of the shoes and the way and the time it took for him to do that, and painting the shoes from life, and Willem doing that. When do you see that? You know, where there's the drama of, is it going to turn out? Is it going to look like the shoes? I mean, you're watching. It's sort of, you think when people have that cliche, it's like sitting around waiting for paint to dry. But I mean, I think there was drama in that particular one, and there's a shift in things, and I don't know. I found it. Also, Jean-Claude Carrier was, I don't know, maybe one of the smartest people that ever walked on the earth. He knew everything about everything, and just being around him was amazing. And so we'd be sitting around talking sometimes, and I think, fuck, that's dialogue. What do you mean? Well, we're talking about Christ, and you know, he said to me, well, you know that the Gospels, I mean, nobody knew who Christ was for 30 or 40 years after he was dead. I thought, well, shit, that's exactly what he needs to tell the priest. And you know, it sort of solves a lot of things when, I mean, how do you put people I mean, we've seen a lot of movies where people end up in hospitals, and it's so boring, and it's so rote, and you just kind of think, well, how do you do it to where you sublimate the experience of being there, or he had this difficult time? How do you do that? And maybe the answer is filmically. And how do you know what that is? Well, I don't know what that is until I'm doing it. And, you know, a long time ago, I was in art school, and I had this professor named Richard Stout, and he said to me, you know, you think literally. You have to start thinking visually. He was right at that time. I didn't know what he was talking about, but somehow it evolved to where maybe I am now.
But it feels like when you were talking about Willem before, and it feels like it channels you. In a way, so I'm wondering. I mean, you've known him for
30 years,
for a long time. So clearly, you communicate well. But there is something further in the performance. I mean, it seems like beside your idea about your story of Van Gogh, he's channeling your ideas about painting and your ideas about art.
Well, I mean, a lot of the things Vincent says, and a lot of the things I say. I mean, when Dr. Gogh asks him, "Why do you paint?" and he says, "To stop thinking." Vincent didn't write that. I mean, he said a lot of other things but and he said, "Well, is that a form of meditation?" No, when I'm painting, I stop thinking. And then he said, you know, I become a part of everything inside and outside of me. Well, some Aborigine painter told me that once, and I thought that was true. And so I think as you're doing this, we channel all sorts of things that we've heard that are part of whatever we have become, an accumulation of everything that's happened to us. And so Also, the bit about Christ on the terrace. I always loved the book, The Master and Margarita. And Vincent definitely identified with Christ, and I thought it was great for him to say that, I have to watch what I'm going to say because Pilate didn't want to crucify Christ, and so that was so. It's kind of an amalgam of things that just that you invent. Um, and then as far as the look of the film, also, you know, when we were going to start to shoot, there wasn't any wheat in France anymore. So we sent Benoit Delhomme, the DP, to Scotland to shoot wheat. But not to just shoot wheat, to basically shoot his feet. So we gave him Vincent's pants and shoes, so he walked around shooting his feet for 6 hours of film. But when he was doing it, we were looking at it, he'd start doing it and then he'd stop, because I said, you have to stop filming your feet and start looking at your feet. You're walking, you're looking at your feet. If you look, I look at my feet when I walk down. I mean, when I'm walking, and so he kind of got that, and he spent a lot of time wearing Vincent's clothes, and also Willem spent a lot of time with the camera in his hands, and he did a lot of running.
So it became what the whole thing became. What?
I mean, there were moments when we were in Arles and we'd go to some place, and the crew didn't know where. So where are we? I said, well, we're on the set. This is the set. I mean, there just happened to be some trees that were growing the right way that had a levee that was sort of running parallel to the street. This is it. Or sometimes we come to the set. You're in the set. You've got to all move. And so sometimes there's just too many people around when you're shooting, and you have to break it down. There's a lot of things that happen spontaneously, where we'll see something, or there'll be the right time of day, and all of a sudden you think, for example, when Willem is running, he's walking through this field of vegetables, and the light is amazing. He's actually not in Arles at that time. We had just shot the scene, the scene where he's walking after he's been shot, and the light was incredible. And this was actually right near where Vincent is buried. Right off from the cemetery, there is this vegetable field. So we just, Louise and I and Benoit and the focus puller and the sound person who had to get out of the way all the time because we're spinning around, we're lying on the floor, and we're doing, and at one time it was 18 minutes long, that whole part where he's walking around, but obviously couldn't do that. Anyway, any questions, or would you like to say something else that you didn't say yet?
I want to see if there are any questions.
Thank you very much for coming here. As the director, and you look at this now, you haven't seen it in a while, I particularly, that moment when you had the dirt on his face, do you remember what you said to him or what prompted him to do that? Was it a very specific thing, or was that taking off from your overall feeling?
I think he just got worked up, and we were trying all of these things, and did I say something about putting the dirt on? What happened?
Eat the dirt.
Yeah. And the reason I said that to him, because Rinaldo Arenas used to eat dirt. I made a movie called Before Night Falls about the poet Rinaldo Arenas, and he, as a child, he'd sit around eating dirt, and I just thought, but what he did when he kind of let it crumble onto his face like that, and then but he smiled. I think that ebullient smile just came out of him. I didn't tell him to do that. And it's amazing how much we cut out of there were so many different possible versions of him painting. Well, another thing that happened, I mean, there were two people on the whole movie that I could have executed. I hate to say that, but one was the prop man, and the other was the woman who played Teo's wife. Maybe she's a good actress. Maybe she can be with some situation, but not really. She was experienced and she could speak English, but she was an actress with a capital A. She came into this set and she needed to read the lines that weren't even in her dialogue, so she could get ready. But everybody that was on the set had to hear her do this. Okay, we can you could suffer fools for a certain amount of time. Then she had a baby. I mean, she had a little baby, and the brother comes home, and he's going to see his brother, and she's got a baby, and they're having a conversation. She's supposed to take care of her child. Well, she put the baby in this bassinet and left the baby on the side in the room where she was supposed to go, and she said, shh, shh, to the baby so she could be in the shot. And then she was sort of calling out, and the two of them were talking, and then her head was popping up into this scene. So I kind of changed it around and said, okay, well, now we're going to, and gave Willem the camera. So they're looking at him, and she had to figure that out, which made it look kind of like a horror film when we're shooting, which was cool. And then later, when the funeral was happening, we didn't really want to trust her with a live baby. So we gave her a doll. And I wanted her to wear a veil over her face. And she said, but I don't want to wear the veil. I'm an actress. And I said, yes, but if I let you take the veil off, don't act. If you don't wear the veil, no acting, okay? So she took the veil off, and she was talking to Rupert Friend, who did an extraordinary job. I think the guy that played the brother was so empathetic and so still, and that craziness in that room where Vincent's going crazy with the wife there, he was stoic and he was brilliant, and it was great when he went and got in the bed with his brother.
Yeah, that scene is beautiful.
So he says to me, but the actress is saying to me, I'm yours, you have me, I'm yours. I mean, he's standing at the funeral of his brother. This woman is telling him this stuff. I said, it's okay, just okay. And Louise's brother was playing. It was the surgeon, and he was. There's a scene where who's there when Vincent is dying. So I said to Louise's brother, I want you to go up to Teo's wife and tell her that the baby is beautiful. I want you to tell her the baby's so beautiful, and just don't let her move, and just keep telling her how cute the kid is. So here she is standing next to him with this doll, and her brother walks around the coffin and is talking to her, so she can't move. She can't bother the other guy. And then by the time you do, the camera's moved over and you see Willem lying in the coffin. But shit like that happens, Again, one person that was extraordinary, I think, is Niels Arestrup, who's the actor who's got souvenir of Tonquin written on his face, he was in The Diving Bell and the Butterfly also. He's just amazing. And when he was speaking, he had a French accent, so he said a word that somebody said they couldn't understand. I didn't want to do it, but okay, Niels, could you say this particular word again? And he said to me, I don't know if I can do that. I'm kind of like a leaf that's blowing around in the wind, and I don't really know where I was when I said that. I said, okay, don't do it. And then he did do it. But it's like that. I mean, it's you kind of do things, and there's a moment that gets recorded, and that becomes a part of what you're doing.
And in the credits,
My
it's
daughter Stella is here. She played. I mean, there's a lot of French actresses and a lot of French people, but she actually played the French girl Gabby, who Willem was asking if she would sleep with him when she was cleaning his room. You could stand up for 1 second, please, just so they could
1
see
second,
you. Just
huh?
so they could see you. There she is. Okay. I thought it came out pretty good. I liked it quite a bit today. Anyway,
The paintings. It says in the credits, it's Julian Schnabel, Willem Dafoe, and I forgot the third.
there was a woman who was a scenic painter who we made a lot of paintings. But for example, when Gauguin and do we have to go home and take care of the baby? Probably. We got to go, right? Okay. Okay, we have to go soon. So we're out on this precipice, and he's painting Willem, and Willem is painting this landscape, and I went out there, and the landscape painting that was just terrible. I mean, it definitely didn't look like a Van Gogh painting, and so I had to paint the painting. It took about 20 minutes, but the whole crew, everybody's waiting around for me. But it was believable So a lot of the things, a lot of the paintings, if they were going to be featured, I'd kind of do something to them, or paintings that were in his studio at the asylum. But Willem painted the painting of the shoes. I helped him a little bit, but I mean, I kind of talked him through it. If you would hear the sound of what was happening, you'd hear me say, well, okay, paint the light well, basically it's about painting the light in. You look at something and you see where the light's coming from, and he did an amazing job.
Yeah, it's a beautiful scene.
And but there was a lot of really, I mean, I think Emmanuel Seigner was fantastic. I mean, I don't know, I think it played pretty well. It's a very weird movie. I mean, there's these black parts where, I felt like, well, you close your eyes. What are you doing when you're just thinking and you're by yourself? I mean, and so those moments, I think, stops everything and you recalibrate. And I felt like it was, I don't know if it was a sort of Jacob's Ladder kind of a feeling or something, but very physical. I think that the movie is a physical, I see the screen kind of like a sculpture.
Yeah, no, it's an extremely physical and sensorial experience.
Does anybody have anything they want to say?
There's one there.
Yeah? Yes?
Can you speak to the connection between Azzedine Alaïa and Van Gogh? Because as a design consultant, I think that Alaïa was sort of a Van Gogh in fashion. So it's interesting that you made that connection.
Right. Are you a design consultant?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Azzedine was one of my best friends, and we were friends for 35 years. And he was family to me. And when we made The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, we shot in the studio. In this movie, we decorated a wall for the show of the what was it, the Printemps? I can't remember which group show where you see the I can't remember whose paintings were in there anymore, but we made this brocade wall and put the paintings in there, and then these people were looking at them, and so but he was the godfather of my son Olmo and Sai, and he was also going to be Esme, our daughter's godfather, and he was, brilliant designer. I mean, he wasn't really like anybody else. I mean, he was drawing with the scissors. He did all of the designs by himself. He had people that worked for him that were like family, and I think it's sort of a disaster right now what's happening over there. That's a whole other story. But the foundation that Carlos Ozzani has made is not representative of what he would want to do, and that'll get straightened out at some moment. But I mean, he was brilliant, and Paris is not the same without him there. I mean, he was a small in size, magnanimous giant, brilliant, great friend. Made great couscous and spaghetti too. Loved him. Love him still. And Christophe, his boyfriend, is living in the south of France now, and basically Carla, I don't want you need to hear this, but Carla Sozzani, they basically took his house away, took his inheritance away, and we have to fix that. Anything else? Anybody?
Okay.
Eric?
There.
Yes.
Could you talk a little bit about your decision to do some of those scenes in a half blur?
Yeah. I went to a vintage shop. Actually, I went to Bob Mellett's vintage shop in Montauk, and I got some sunglasses. And when I walked out of the store, it looked like there was a step in the grass because they were bifocals. And I thought, okay, that's right. So I thought that his perception of things and when his mood got exacerbated or things got like, it was a great way to show his point of view. And besides the fact that it made the screen more interesting. I mean, one part of the movie looks like you're driving by in a car at about 15 miles an hour, and the other part is static. And so I particularly liked it today when he actually ran out of the asylum and everything was sort of green, and then he ran into his own point of view. And then instead of leaving it green when he came out of it, it just went back to cerulean blue or ultramarine blue colors in the sky, and everything was green. And then when he accosts this girl, you have to go back and forth between these things and invent a whole other color, which was a lot of fun to do. But basically, he had that point of view to show that it was his point of view, and it was different than regular everybody else.
I think the use you made of the letters also heightens the fact that the film is really from the way he sees the world and reality.
When you said letters,
His letters, Van Gogh.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he kind of talks about. What did you think? What did you think of the scene when he was talking to Dr. Ray? I mean, when Willem was talking to Dr. Ray. I thought he was amazing, and Dr. Ray, I thought did a great job also.
I want a doctor like that.
Yeah, everybody does, I think. And Mads Mikkelsen, who played the priest, was just. And the thing is that these things happen on the first take. Willem's stuff was on the first take. The young doctor we had to do that a while, but because at first he was too nice to Willem, and I said, well, you might admire him as a person, and as a actor, but not as the guy that just came into your office and cut his ear off and did a lot of crazy shit. And why you like him so much? So why don't we do that? Anyway, we roughed him up a little bit, but I knew him for a long time. But how about the kids? Weren't those kids great? Those French kids. They were all children from Arles that we met there and kind of put them in the situation. And then they wanted us to have some other kids do some voices when we were doing the sound in Paris, but I wanted the same kids to come over if they had to fix anything or do anything, which we did. So we had it's amazing. There was one kid that was going to throw a rock at him later, but he didn't throw the rock so well, and I said, well, he wasn't going to do any more, and he started crying, and I thought, okay, you're going to throw the rock. We're going to teach you to throw a rock, and absolutely okay. And then he was happy, and everything was okay. These things happen, you know. Anybody else have anything, another question, or you want to go home? It's about time, right? Even if you've paid living at home.
Now we have to see the film again.
Yeah, you can watch it again.
Yes. I want to go back and look for all this stuff again.
Oh, you don't want to see that. No, you don't want to take it apart and see that. I want to forget all of that. But thank you for coming, and thank you for inviting me. And actually, Julia, I've known her for, well, we showed Basquiat, which a film I made in 1995. It came out in 96 in Venice, and we've known each other since then. And she really knows her stuff, and she's really great. And there's no
Thank you.
no job too big or too small. And I'm talking about in the middle of Venice when there's a million different people pulling her from a million different directions. She will take care of them on the most minute detail and take care of things in the most human way. And that's really cool. And you don't make that shit up. So that's why I'm here.
Well, thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll have more. We have other plans with Julian.
The sound was great. It was great watching it, and it's funny because there was one scene in the restaurant when the guy's screaming at him, telling him to take his stuff off of in that cafeteria, and I guess there was some weird sound in the cafeteria. I thought it was in this building, but it wasn't. It was in the sound of the movie.
Yeah.
And in Cannes, when I showed the diving bell and the butterfly there, I heard every pipe in the room and everybody sneezing or coughing or whatever. I took a Xanax and I woke up right before the end of the movie, and we won Best Director in Cannes. But I did wake up right at the end of the movie. Anyway, this was really good. Thanks. The sound's beautiful.
Please come back soon.
Louise, thank you. You made this movie really great. She really did. Now I'm dependent on her.